The stars looked different out here. Captain Lee Hyun-woo pressed his face against the cold metal of the observation deck window and watched the alien ship drift closer to his vessel. 3 months ago, he had been exploring dead worlds and empty space. Now, something that was definitely not human hung in the darkness ahead of them. The UES Harmony had been searching the Kepler 442 system for signs of life when their sensors picked up the strange readings. At first, the crew thought it was just another asteroid or piece of space junk. But asteroids did not move in perfect circles, asteroids did not glow with soft blue light, and asteroids definitely did not respond to radio signals with musical sounds that made everyone on the bridge stop and listen. Lee turned away from the window and walked back toward the bridge. His boots made soft tapping sounds on the metal floor. The ship felt too quiet today. Even the normal humming of the engines seemed muted. Everyone was nervous about what they might find on that alien vessel. Dr. Park So-young was waiting for him near the communications station. She had her tablet in her hands and was reading something that made her frown. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the standard blue science uniform of the exploration fleet. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. "Captain, I have been studying the sound patterns they are sending us," she said. Her voice was soft but excited. "I think they might be trying to communicate. The frequencies match patterns I have seen in animal behavior studies back on Earth." Lee nodded and looked at the main screen. The alien ship was much larger than theirs. It had a strange, organic shape, like someone had grown it rather than built it. Curved sections flowed into each other in ways that human engineering could never achieve. The blue glow seemed to pulse in rhythm like a heartbeat. "What kind of animals?" Lee asked. "Big cats mostly. The frequency patterns are similar to how tigers and lions communicate with each other over long distances. But there is something else, too. Something more complex." She touched the screen of her tablet and played a recording. The bridge filled with the sound the aliens had been sending. It was beautiful. Lee had expected something harsh or mechanical, but this sounded almost like singing. Deep bass notes mixed with higher tones in patterns that seemed to have meaning. Even though he could not understand it, the sound made him feel calm. "How long until they reach us?" he asked Commander Kim Tae-min, his second-in-command. 2 hours at their current speed. They are definitely coming toward us, but they are not accelerating. If they wanted to attack, they would be moving much faster. Lee walked to his captain's chair and sat down. First contact with an alien species was something every explorer dreamed about, but also feared. There were so many ways it could go wrong. The history books were full of stories about what happened when different human cultures met for the first time. Usually, someone ended up dead. "Assemble the first contact team," he ordered. "Dr. Park, I want you with us. Your animal behavior expertise might be useful. Commander Kim, you will stay here and keep the ship ready in case we need to leave quickly." "Sir, are you sure about boarding their vessel?" Kim asked. "We know nothing about their intentions or their capabilities. They have been sending us music for 3 hours, Lee replied. "That does not seem like the behavior of a hostile species. Besides, first contact protocol requires us to attempt peaceful communication before taking any defensive actions." Dr. Park looked nervous. "Captain, if these beings are similar to Earth's big cats, we need to be very careful about our body language and movements. Cats are territorial creatures. They have complex social rules about dominance and submission. One wrong gesture could be interpreted as a challenge or threat. What do you recommend?" "Keep our group small. Move slowly. Avoid direct eye contact until we understand their social structure. And whatever we do, we should not approach their young if we see any. Parent. Cats will attack anything they perceive as a threat to their offspring." Lee made mental notes of her advice. He had led first contact missions before, but only with human colonies that had been isolated for generations. This was completely different. These were not humans at all. The next 2 hours passed slowly. The alien ship continued to send its musical signals, and Dr. Park worked to identify patterns in the communications. She discovered that the sounds changed when their ship moved, suggesting the aliens were responding to their actions. "Captain, they are matching our speed and trajectory," reported Technician Choi Min-ho from the navigation station. "They want to dock with us." Lee watched as the alien vessel extended what looked like a flexible tube toward their ship. The docking mechanism was completely unlike human technology, but it seemed to work the same way. Within minutes, the two ships were connected. "Atmosphere readings show their air is compatible with human physiology," reported Lieutenant Yoon Da-hee from the weapons station. "Temperature is slightly warmer than our ship, but within acceptable range." Lee stood up and straightened his uniform. "Dr. Park, Technician Choi, Lieutenant Yoon, you are with me. Remember the protocols. No sudden movements. No weapons unless I give the order. And above all, we are here to learn, not to fight." They walked through the ship's corridors toward the docking bay. Lee could feel his heart beating faster with each step. In a few minutes, he would be the first human to meet an alien species face to face. The weight of that responsibility felt heavy on his shoulders. The docking bay doors opened with a soft hiss. Beyond them was a corridor that definitely had not been built by human hands. The walls curved in impossible ways, and the blue glow was stronger here. It seemed to come from the walls themselves, as if the entire ship was alive. "Remember what Dr. Park said about body language," Lee whispered to his team. "Slow movements, no direct eye contact. We are guests here." They stepped through the doorway and into the alien ship. The first thing Lee noticed was the smell. It was not unpleasant, but it was definitely not human. It reminded him of warm fur and something else he could not identify. The air was thick and humid like a jungle. The corridor was wider than anything on their ship, with a high ceiling that disappeared into shadows above them. The walls were not smooth like human construction. They had a textured surface that looked organic, as if they had grown rather than been built. Then they heard the sound. It was similar to the communications they had been receiving, but deeper and more complex. It was coming from somewhere ahead of them in the corridor. "They know we are here," Dr. Park whispered. "That sound is a greeting call. In cat behavior, it means they are announcing our presence to the rest of their group." Lee nodded and continued walking forward. His team stayed close behind him. The corridor curved to the left, and as they rounded the corner, they saw their first alien. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The creature stood about 8 feet tall on 2 legs, but its body was covered in short golden fur that seemed to shimmer in the blue light. Its head was distinctly feline, with large ears and eyes that glowed with an inner light. But there was intelligence in those eyes, a depth that no Earth animal had ever possessed. The alien made a soft, chirping sound and tilted its head to one side. Dr. Park had been right about the cat-like behavior. This was definitely a greeting gesture. "Hello," Lee said softly, raising one hand in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. The alien responded with a series of musical tones, and its fur began to change color. Patterns of light moved across its body like living tattoos. Dr. Park gasped beside him. "Captain, I think that is their language. They are communicating through bioluminescence as well as sound." More aliens appeared in the corridor behind the first one. They were all similar in appearance, but with different fur colors and patterns. Some were larger, some smaller. One was clearly much younger than the others, staying close to what was probably its parent. Lee felt a moment of wonder at the sight. These were not the monsters that human science fiction had imagined. These were intelligent beings with their own culture and language. This was exactly the kind of discovery that made all the risks of deep space exploration worthwhile. But as he watched the young alien move closer to investigate the strange visitors, he noticed Lieutenant Yoon tense beside him. Her hand moved slightly toward her weapon. No sudden movements. he whispered urgently. It was already too late. The young alien had moved too close, and Lieutenant Yoon's training kicked in before her mind could stop her hand from moving. The sound of the energy weapon firing echoed through the alien corridor like thunder. The young alien's body hit the curved wall of the corridor and slid to the floor. Golden fur that had been shimmering with curious light patterns now lay dull and still. The smell of burned flesh mixed with the warm jungle scent of the alien ship. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then the parent alien let out a sound that made Captain Lee Hyun-woo's bones ache. It was not just a cry of pain. It was something deeper, something that spoke of loss beyond words. The sound echoed through the corridors and seemed to make the walls themselves vibrate. "Oh no," Dr. Park So-young whispered. Her tablet fell from her hands and clattered on the floor. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." The other aliens in the corridor began making similar sounds. Their bioluminescent patterns changed from the soft greeting colors to harsh reds and oranges that pulsed like warning lights. Lee had never seen anything like it, but he did not need Dr. Park to tell him what it meant. He had just witnessed the death of someone's child. "We need to leave," Lieutenant Yoon said. Her weapon was still in her hand, but now she looked horrified at what she had done. "We need to leave right now." But it was too late. More aliens appeared from side corridors and chambers. They surrounded the human team, but they did not attack. Instead, they began a low, harmonious sound that was both beautiful and terrifying. It sounded like a funeral song. The parent alien knelt beside the body of the young one. Its fur had turned completely black, except for silver patterns that moved like tears down its face. It touched the still form gently with one clawed hand, and made soft sounds that needed no translation. This was grief in its purest form. "Captain," Dr. Park said quietly, "we have to do something." In cat social structures, the death of a young member is one of the worst possible tragedies. They will want justice. Lee stepped forward slowly, his hands raised to show he meant no harm. He approached the grieving parent and carefully knelt down beside it. The alien looked at him with eyes that glowed like amber fire. "I am sorry," Lee said. He knew the alien could not understand his words, but perhaps it could understand his tone. "This was an accident. We did not mean for this to happen." The alien stared at him for a long moment. Then it made a series of complex musical sounds. Other aliens responded with similar calls. They were discussing something, and Lee had the uncomfortable feeling that he and his team were the subject of that discussion. "Dr. Park, can you understand any of this?" he asked, without taking his eyes off the parent alien. "Some of it. The frequency patterns suggest they are debating what to do with us. I think they understand that it was an accident, but that might not matter. In many animal societies, intent is less important than result." The conversation between the aliens continued for several minutes. Finally, the largest alien in the group, one with deep red fur and intricate golden patterns, approached the humans. When it spoke, its voice was deeper than the others, and its bioluminescent display was more complex. "I think that one is their leader," Dr. Park whispered. "The patterns suggest high social status." The leader alien made a gesture that seemed to indicate the humans should follow. Lee looked at his team. Lieutenant Yoon was pale and shaking. Technician Choi Min-ho looked like he wanted to run back to their ship. But they had no choice. They were outnumbered and in alien territory. They followed the leader through corridors that twisted and curved in ways that made Lee dizzy. The alien ship was much larger than it had appeared from the outside. They passed chambers filled with other aliens, all of whom stopped what they were doing to watch the humans pass. Their bioluminescent patterns were subdued, respectful. Word of the young one's death had already spread throughout the ship. Finally, they arrived at a large circular chamber. The walls were covered with what looked like artwork, but the patterns moved and changed as Lee watched them. In the center of the room was a raised platform where several aliens sat in what appeared to be positions of authority. The largest of these, an ancient-looking creature with white fur and scars across its face, rose and approached the humans. Its patterns were different from the others, more complex and subtle. When it spoke, its voice had a musical quality that reminded Lee of wind chimes. Dr. Park was frantically trying to record and analyze the alien speech patterns on her tablet. "Captain, I think this is some kind of formal hearing or trial. The frequency patterns suggest legal or ceremonial language." The ancient alien spoke for several minutes, its patterns shifting and changing with each phrase. Other aliens responded with short calls that sounded like agreement or acknowledgement. Finally, the ancient one turned to Lee and made what was clearly a question. "I think it wants you to respond," Dr. Park said. In cat social behavior, this would be the time for the accused party to explain their actions. Lee stepped forward. He had no idea what to say, but he had to try something. "We came here in peace," he said slowly. "We wanted to learn about your people and share knowledge with you. The death of your young one was an accident. We are sorry for your loss." The ancient alien listened to his words, even though it clearly could not understand them. But it seemed to be paying attention to his tone and body language. After he finished speaking, it conferred with the other aliens on the platform. The discussion went on for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, the ancient alien made a decision. It spoke a single word that was repeated by all the other aliens in the chamber. The sound echoed off the curved walls and seemed to settle into Lee's bones. "What did they say?" he asked Dr. Park. "I'm not sure, but based on the frequency patterns and the responses of the other aliens, I think they just pronounced some kind of judgment or sentence." The leader alien with red fur approached them again. This time its patterns were formal and ceremonial. It made a series of gestures that involved pointing at the humans and then at a doorway on the far side of the chamber. "They want us to go somewhere else," Technician Choi said nervously. They were escorted through more corridors to a different part of the ship. This section felt different from the areas they had seen before. The walls were darker and there were markings carved into the surfaces that looked ancient and important. They stopped in front of a large doorway that was sealed with what appeared to be a complex locking mechanism. The leader alien manipulated several controls, and the door opened with a deep rumbling sound. Beyond the door was a chamber unlike anything Lee had ever seen. The space was huge, with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. The floor was covered with what looked like natural terrain, hills and valleys, and streams of water that glowed with the same blue light as the ship's corridors. "It's like a park," Dr. Park said in amazement. "Or maybe a preserve of some kind." The leader alien made more gestures. This time its meaning was clear. It pointed at Commander Kim Tae-min, then pointed into the chamber. "No," Lee said immediately. "Whatever this is, I won't let you take one of my people." But Kim stepped forward. He had been quiet during the entire encounter, but now he looked determined. "Captain, if this is some kind of justice system, then someone has to face it. Lieutenant Yoon may have pulled the trigger, but I am your second in command. The responsibility is mine." Kim, "No. Sir, this might be our only chance to prevent a war between our species. If they want justice for the death of their young, then let them have it." The leader alien seemed to understand Kim's willingness to enter the chamber. Its patterns changed to what might have been approval or respect. It made a series of sounds that were clearly instructions. Kim began walking toward the entrance to the chamber. As he did, Dr. Park grabbed Lee's arm. "Captain, I think I understand now. This isn't a trial chamber. It's a hunting ground." "What?" "The terrain, the size, the way they're talking about it. I think this is how they settle matters of justice. Someone enters the hunting ground, and they are pursued. It's like a formalized version of how big cats establish dominance in the wild." Lee tried to run after Kim, but other aliens stepped into his path. They did not harm him, but they made it clear that he could not interfere. Kim had made his choice, and now he had to see it through. Kim paused at the entrance to the chamber and looked back at his captain. He smiled grimly and saluted. "It has been an honor serving with you, sir." Then he stepped into the hunting ground, and the massive door began to close behind him. Through the narrowing gap, Lee could see Kim walking across the alien landscape. The chamber was not empty. Shapes moved in the shadows between the hills, and Lee realized with growing horror that Kim was not alone in there. The door closed with a final rumbling sound. From somewhere inside the chamber came the sound of running feet and heavy breathing. Then came other sounds, sounds that Lee tried not to identify. Dr. Park was crying now. Tears ran down her face as she listened to what was happening to Kim behind the sealed door. "This is all wrong," she whispered. "There has to be another way." But Lee was no longer listening to her words. Something cold and hard was forming in his chest as he heard his friend's final moments. The aliens around them watched with what might have been satisfaction or respect. When the sounds from the hunting ground finally stopped, the ancient alien with white fur approached Lee. It made a formal gesture and spoke a single word. Lee did not need Dr. Park to translate. He understood perfectly. 2 days had passed since Commander Kim Tae-min died in the alien hunting ground. Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood in his quarters staring at a photograph of his crew. Kim was there in the picture, smiling and proud in his uniform. Now, his body lay somewhere behind that sealed door, and Lee could not even give him a proper burial. The aliens had returned them to their ship after Kim's death. They said through gestures and simple pictures that justice was complete. One life for one life. The debt was paid. But 3 hours ago, more alien ships had arrived in the system. Not just 1 or 2, but dozens of them. They surrounded the human vessel like predators circling wounded prey. Dr. Park So-young knocked on his door and entered without waiting for permission. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red from crying, and she had not changed her uniform in 2 days. She carried her tablet and a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. "Captain, I have been studying their communications," she said. Her voice was hoarse from grief. "The new ships that arrived are from different clans or families. They are not here about Kim's death. They are here because word has spread about us throughout their species." Lee turned away from the photograph. "What do they want?" "I think they want to hunt us. All of us. The patterns in their communication suggest that humans have become something new to them. We are exotic prey that they have never encountered before." "We are not prey," Lee said quietly. But something in his voice had changed since Kim's death. It was harder now, colder. "We are explorers and scientists." That doesn't matter to them. In their culture, everything is either predator or prey. There is no middle ground. They have decided that we are prey, and now they want to test themselves against us. Lee walked to his desk and activated the communication system. "Bridge, this is the captain. Report." Lieutenant Yoon Da-hee's voice came through the speakers. She had not spoken much since she killed the young alien. "Sir, we count 43 alien vessels surrounding us at various distances. They are not blocking our escape route, but they are definitely watching us. Any communication from them?" "Yes, sir. The same musical signals as before, but Dr. Park says they are different now, more complex." Lee looked at Park. "What are they saying?" "They are discussing the rules," she said. "From what I can understand, they want to establish formal hunting protocols with us. In their minds, this is an honor. They are offering us the chance to prove that humans can be worthy adversaries." "And if we refuse?" Park hesitated. "I think they will hunt us anyway. But it won't be honorable. It will be extermination." Lee felt something twist inside his chest. These aliens thought they could treat humans like animals in their private game preserve. They thought they could kill Kim and call it justice. They thought they could surround his ship and demand the right to hunt his crew for sport. Captain, Park continued, there might be another way. If I could study their culture more, learn their language properly, maybe I can find a peaceful solution. They are intelligent beings. There has to be a way to make them understand that we are not just prey. Before Lee could answer, alarms began, sounding throughout the ship. Lieutenant Yoon's voice came over the communication system, tight with fear. Captain to the bridge immediately. They are launching something. Lee and Dr. Park ran through the corridors to the bridge. When they arrived, they saw on the main screen that one of the alien vessels was extending the same kind of docking tube they had seen before. They want to board us again, Technician Choi Min-ho said. He was at his station, but his hands were shaking. What do we do? Lee stared at the screen. He could order the ship to full power and try to escape. But there were 43 alien vessels out there. The Harmony was fast, but it was not a warship. They would be caught within hours. Sir, Lieutenant Yoon said quietly, I volunteer for the next hunt. This whole situation started because of what I did. Let me face the consequences. No, Lee said immediately. No more of my crew dies for their entertainment. But even as he said it, he knew they had no choice. The aliens had made it clear that they would take their prey one way or another. The only question was whether it would be on their terms or through open violence. The docking tube connected to their ship with a soft thud. Alien sounds echoed through the corridors, musical calls that sounded different from before. These were not greeting songs. These were hunting songs. They are coming aboard, Choi reported. Multiple life signs in the docking bay. Lee made his decision. Dr. Park, you stay here and continue working on their language. Try to find some way to communicate with them that doesn't involve more death. Lieutenant Yoon, Technician Choi, you are with me. Captain, Park grabbed his arm. Please don't do anything that will make this situation worse. These beings can be reasoned with. I know they can. Lee looked at her tear-stained face. She still believed in peaceful solutions. She still thought that understanding and communication could solve everything. Part of him envied her faith, but another part of him was growing tired of watching his crew die while she searched for diplomatic answers. Stay here, he repeated. Monitor everything and record it. If something happens, to us, make sure the data gets back to Earth. They walked through the ship to the docking bay. The corridors felt different now, like they belonged to someone else. Lee realized that his ship was no longer truly his. The aliens could come and go as they pleased, taking his crew members one by one for their hunting games. The docking bay. Doors opened to reveal 5 aliens waiting for them. These were different from the ones they had met before. They were larger, with darker fur and more complex bioluminescent patterns. Their eyes glowed brighter, and when they moved, it was with the fluid grace of natural predators. One of them approached Lee and made a series of gestures. Its meaning was clear. It pointed at the humans, then at itself, then toward the docking tube. Another hunt was about to begin. Lee looked at his remaining crew members. Lieutenant Yoon was trying to hide her fear, but he could see it in her eyes. Technician Choi was barely holding himself together. These were good people who had signed up to explore the galaxy and advance human knowledge. They had not signed up to be entertainment for alien hunters. The lead alien made the gesture again, more insistently this time. Its patterns were becoming more aggressive, shifting to the harsh reds and oranges that seemed to indicate impatience or anger. I will go, Lee said quietly. Sir, no. Lieutenant Yoon stepped forward. This is my responsibility. You are needed here. Both of you are needed here. I am the captain. This is my decision. But as they argued, Technician Choi suddenly walked past them toward the aliens. His face was pale, but determined. My sister died in a transport accident last year, he said without looking back. I joined this mission because I had nothing left to live for. At least this way my death might mean something. Before anyone could stop him, he was walking through the docking tube toward the alien ship. The hunters followed him, their patterns shifting to what might have been approval or excitement. Lee tried to follow, but the last alien in the group turned and made a blocking gesture. The meaning was clear. Only the prey was allowed in the hunting ground. Everyone else had to wait. 3. Docking tube disconnected and the alien ship moved away from the Harmony. Lee watched through the bridge view screen as it positioned itself near what appeared to be another constructed hunting environment, this one floating in space like an artificial asteroid. "Captain," Dr. Park said over the communication system, "I am picking up sounds from the alien vessel. I think the hunt has begun." For the next 2 hours, they listened to audio feeds that Dr. Park had managed to tap into from the alien communications. They heard Choi running through artificial terrain, his breathing heavy and desperate. They heard the sounds of the alien, hunters moving through the same terrain, calling to each other in their musical language. Sometimes they heard Choi's voice, calling out in Korean words that meant courage and hope. Sometimes they heard him crying. Always they heard him moving, never giving up, never stopping. Dr. Park cried as she listened. Tears ran down her face and fell onto her tablet as she tried to analyze the alien communications and find some clue that might help them understand this species better. When the sounds finally stopped, Lee felt something break inside himself. Choi had been a good man, a quiet man who did his job well and never complained. He had volunteered for death because he thought it might save his crewmates. But it would not save them. Lee understood that now. The aliens were not interested in justice or honor or any of the civilized concepts that Dr. Park wanted to believe in. They were interested in hunting. They were interested in testing themselves against new prey. They were interested in the sport of it, and they would keep taking his crew members one by one until there was no one left. The alien ship returned to dock with the Harmony. This time, when the hunters came aboard, their patterns were bright and excited. They were pleased with their hunt. They were already looking forward to the next one. The lead alien approached Lee and made the same gesture as before. It wanted to know who would be next. Captain Lee Hyun-woo stood in the armory of the UES Harmony, staring at weapons that had never been meant for use against living beings. These were tools for mining asteroids and cutting through ship hulls in emergencies. But they would serve a different purpose now. 3 days had passed since technician Choi Min-ho died in the alien hunting ground. The alien ships still surrounded them, waiting patiently for the next hunt. But Lee was done being prey. "Captain, what are you doing?" Dr. Park So-young stood in the doorway of the armory. Her eyes were still red from crying, but now they held something else too. Fear. Not fear of the aliens, but fear of what she saw in Lee's face. "I am preparing," Lee said without looking at her. He picked up a plasma cutter and checked its power settings. "The next time they come for one of my crew, they will get something different than they expect. Sir, please think about this rationally. Violence will only make the situation worse. These beings have a complex culture. If I can just learn more about their language and customs, I know I can find a peaceful solution." Lee turned to face her. His expression was calm, but there was something in his eyes that made her step backward. "How many more of my crew do you need to watch die before you accept that peace is not possible with these creatures?" "They are not creatures. They are intelligent beings with their own society and values. Their values include hunting humans for sport," Lee said. He strapped the plasma cutter to his belt and picked up an industrial laser. "Their society revolves around treating us like animals. I am done pretending that we can reason with them." Dr. Park moved closer, her voice becoming desperate. "Captain, Lee, this is not who you are. I have worked with you for 2 years. You are a man of science and exploration. You believe in peaceful contact with alien species. I believed in those things when I thought we would meet aliens who shared our values, Lee replied. But these aliens have shown us what they really are. They are predators, and predators only understand one language. He walked past her out of the armory and headed toward the bridge. Dr. Park followed, her tablet clutched in her hands like a shield against the changes she saw happening around her. On the bridge, Lieutenant Yoon Da-hee was monitoring the alien communications. She looked up when Lee entered. "Sir, they are preparing for another hunt. The same ship as before is moving into position near the artificial hunting ground." "Are they sending the docking signal?" "Not yet, but their communication patterns suggest they will be boarding us soon." Lee nodded and walked to his command chair. But instead of sitting down, he activated the ship's internal communication system. His voice echoed through every corridor and room of the Harmony. "Attention, all crew. Members, this is your captain speaking. For 3 days, we have followed diplomatic protocols with the alien species that has surrounded our ship. We have allowed them to take our people for their hunting games in the hope that cooperation would lead to peaceful coexistence." Dr. Park stared at him in horror. She could hear what was coming in his voice. "Commander Kim Tae-min and Technician Choi Min-ho died because we believed these aliens could be reasoned with. But I have come to understand that reasoning is not possible with creatures that view us only as prey to be hunted for entertainment." "Captain, please," Dr. Park whispered. "Therefore, I am implementing Protocol Apex, effective immediately. All crew members will arm themselves with whatever weapons are available. When the aliens board our ship again, we will show them that humans are not prey. We are predators." Lee cut the communication and turned to Lieutenant Yoon. "How many aliens typically come aboard for these hunting selections?" 5 or 6, sir. Never more than that." "And how many crew members do we have left?" 12, including Dr. Park. Lee did quick calculations in his head. The aliens were larger and stronger than humans, but they had never encountered human military tactics. They had never faced coordinated resistance from their prey. They were used to hunting frightened individuals in controlled environments. "Sir," Dr. Park said desperately, "if we attack them, their entire fleet will destroy us. We cannot fight 43 alien warships." "We are not going to fight their fleet," Lee said. "We are going to teach them a lesson they will never forget." The fee. Docking signal came an hour later. Lee watched on the main screen as the alien ship approached the Harmony and extended its flexible tube. But this time, his crew was ready. Lieutenant Yoon had positioned herself in the corridor leading to the docking bay, armed with a plasma rifle normally used for geological surveys. Engineer Song Jae-ho waited in a side passage with an industrial cutting laser. 3 other crew members had found positions where they could create crossfire patterns that would trap the aliens in a killing zone. Dr. Park stood in the corridor behind them, tears streaming down her face. "Please don't do this. There has to be another way." Lee ignored her. He was focused on the tactical situation now, thinking like the military officer he had been before joining the exploration fleet. The aliens would enter through the docking bay expecting to find frightened humans waiting to be selected for their hunt. Instead, they would find something else entirely. "Remember," he said into his communicator, "these creatures see us as prey. They are not expecting resistance. Use that advantage." The docking bay doors opened and the aliens entered the ship. There were 6 of them this time, all large males with dark fur and aggressive bioluminescent patterns. They moved with the confident swagger of apex predators entering their own territory. The first alien rounded the corner into the main corridor and walked directly into Lieutenant Yoon's plasma rifle beam. The energy tore through its chest and sent it crashing into the wall. The creature's death cry echoed through the ship, a sound of shock and disbelief. The other aliens stopped, their patterns flashing in confusion. They had never seen prey fight back before. They had never seen one of their own kind killed by the creatures they had come to hunt. Engineer Song stepped out of his hiding place and fired the cutting laser. The beam sliced through two aliens before they could react. Their bodies fell to the deck, fur still glowing with the fading remnants of their communication patterns. The remaining three aliens tried to retreat, but they found the corridor blocked by more armed humans. Plasma beams and laser fire filled the air. The aliens fought back with their natural weapons, claws, and teeth that could tear through metal. But they were outnumbered and surrounded. The battle lasted less than 5 minutes. When it was over, all 6 aliens lay dead on the deck of the Harmony. Human blood mixed with alien blood on the corridor walls. The air smelled of burned fur and plasma discharge. Dr. Park knelt beside one of the alien bodies, sobbing uncontrollably. "They had families," she whispered. "They had children and mates and complex social relationships. They were not monsters." Lee looked down at her without emotion. "They treated us like monsters. They hunted us for sport. What we just did was not murder. It was justice. This is not justice. This is revenge. Call it whatever you want," Lee said. He walked over to the ship's internal communication system and opened a channel to the alien fleet. "This is Captain Lee Hyun-woo of the human vessel Harmony. Your hunting party is dead. If you want to retrieve their bodies, you may dock with our ship one at a time. But be warned that any attempt to board us with hostile intent will result in more deaths." The alien fleet's response was immediate. Musical calls filled the communication channels, angry and confused. Dr. Park worked frantically to translate what she could. "They are debating what to do," she reported through her tears. "Some want to attack us immediately. Others are calling for the clan elders to make a decision. They have never encountered prey that fights back like this." "Good," Lee said. "Let them debate." Over the next several hours, representatives from different alien clans came aboard the Harmony one by one to retrieve the bodies of their dead. Each time they found themselves facing armed humans who watched them with cold, calculating eyes. The aliens who had once moved with predatory confidence now seemed nervous and uncertain. Dr. Park tried to communicate with each group that boarded, using her growing understanding of their language to explain that the killings had been in self-defense. But the aliens seemed less interested in her explanations than in studying the humans who had killed their hunters. "They are analyzing us," she reported to Lee, "trying to understand how prey became predators. In their culture, this kind of reversal is almost impossible to comprehend." "They will adapt," Lee said. "And when they do, we need to be ready." He was right. Within 12 hours, the alien fleet's response became clear. Instead of retreating or attempting further negotiations, they began moving into attack formations. Their communications changed from musical calls to harsh rhythmic sounds that needed no translation. "They have decided to stop hunting us individually," Dr. Park said. "Now they plan to destroy us completely." Lee smiled, and the expression on his face made Dr. Park's blood run cold. "Then we will have to destroy them first." "Captain, we are one ship against 43. This is suicide." "No," Lee said quietly. "This is evolution." He activated the ship's long-range communications and began broadcasting a message toward Earth. But it was not a call for help. It was something else, entirely. The UES Harmony shuddered under the impact of alien weapons fire. Captain Lee Hyun-woo gripped his command chair as the ship's hull groaned and twisted. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically at their stations, trying to keep their single vessel alive against 43 alien warships. "Shield generators at 60%, Lieutenant Yoon Da-hee reported. Her voice was steady, but Lee could see the fear in her eyes. "We cannot take much more of this." Through the main view screen, Lee watched the alien fleet moving in, coordinated. Attack patterns. Their ships flowed through space like a pack of hunting cats, taking turns to strike at the human vessel before retreating to let others attack. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Sir, Engineer Song Jae-ho called from his station. I am detecting something strange. The alien weapons are not firing at full power. It's like they are trying to disable us rather than destroy us. Dr. Park So-young looked up from her tablet where she had been monitoring alien communications. Her face was pale and streaked with tears, but her voice was urgent. Captain, they are not trying to kill us. They want to capture us alive. Why? Lee demanded. I think they want to study us. We killed their hunters, something that has never happened before in their culture. We became predators when we were supposed to be prey. They want to understand how that is possible. Lee felt something cold settle in his stomach. The aliens did not want to destroy the Harmony. They wanted to take its crew back to their worlds for examination. They wanted to turn humans into laboratory specimens. That will never happen, he said quietly. He activated the ship's internal communication system. All crew members, this is your captain. The alien fleet is attempting to capture us for study and experimentation. I want you to know that I will not allow that to happen. If our ship is boarded, we will fight to the last man. Captain, Dr. Park stood up from her station. There might be another option. If I could communicate with their fleet commanders, explain that we are intelligent beings with our own culture and rights, maybe they would listen. Lee looked at her with something that might have been pity. Dr. Park, you have been trying to communicate with them for days. They have shown you exactly what they think of human intelligence and culture. We are prey to them, nothing more. But if we could just make them understand— They understand perfectly, Lee interrupted. They understand that we are a new species. They have never hunted before. They understand that we fought back when they expected us to submit. They understand that we are valuable specimens for their scientists to study. What they do not understand is that we are people who deserve to live free. The ship shook again as more alien weapons struck their shields. This time, the lights flickered and several console screens went dark. Shield generators at 30%, Lieutenant Yoon reported. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7. Lee made his decision. Engineering, prepare to overload the main reactor. Silence filled the bridge. Everyone stared at their captain, understanding immediately what he meant to do. Sir, Engineer Song said slowly, if we overload the reactor while the alien ships are this close, the explosion will destroy most of their fleet. That is the idea. Dr. Park grabbed Lee's arm. You cannot be serious. You are talking about mass murder. Those ships contain thousands of intelligent beings. Those intelligent beings want to hunt humans for sport, Lee replied, gently removing her hand from his arm. They want to capture us and study us like laboratory animals. They have made their intentions clear. Captain, Lieutenant Yoon said quietly. The crew should have a choice in this decision. Lee nodded and reactivated the communication system. All hands, this is the captain. Our situation is hopeless. The alien fleet will capture us within the next few minutes. I am offering you a choice. We can allow ourselves to be taken prisoner and hope for eventual rescue. Or we can ensure that these aliens never threaten another human ship. He paused, looking around the bridge at his remaining crew. I am going to overload our reactor and take as many of them with us as possible. Anyone who wishes to evacuate to the escape pods may do so now. You have 2 minutes to decide. Dr. Park stared at him in horror. This is insane. You are asking people to choose suicide. I am asking them to choose how they want to die, Lee corrected. As free humans or as alien laboratory specimens? The next 2 minutes felt like hours. Lee watched the countdown timer on his command console while listening to reports from around the ship. Some crew members were heading for the escape pods. Others were staying at their posts. A few were saying goodbye to family members through recorded messages that would never be sent. Dr. Park remained on the bridge, tears streaming down her face. I cannot let you do this, she said. There has to be another way. Then find it, Lee replied. You have 30 seconds. She worked frantically at her tablet, trying to compose a message in the alien language that might stop the attack. But even as she worked, they all knew it was too late. The alien ships were already moving into position for a final assault that would disable the Harmony completely. "Time," Lee said quietly. He reached for the reactor overload controls. But before his hand touched the panel, something unexpected happened. New contacts appeared on the ship's sensors. Human contacts. "Captain," Lieutenant Yoon said with amazement in her voice, "we have 3 Earth Defense Force cruisers dropping out of hyperspace. They received your transmission and came to assist." Lee stared at the tactical display. 3 human warships had arrived in the system, their weapons already charging for combat. These were not exploration vessels like the Harmony. These were ships designed for war. "This is Admiral Chen Wei aboard the EDF Retribution," a voice came through the communication system. "Captain Lee, we received your data transmission about the hostile alien species. Stand by for military assistance." The arrival of human reinforcements changed everything. The alien fleet, which had been focused entirely on capturing one damaged exploration ship, suddenly found itself facing fresh opponents with military-grade weapons and shields. "Dr. Park," Lee said urgently, "try to contact the alien fleet. Tell them that more human ships are coming. Tell them that if they do not retreat immediately, they will face the full military power of Earth." But it was too late for communication. The lead alien vessel, perhaps thinking that the arrival of more humans meant more prey to hunt, opened fire on the EDF cruiser Retribution. The human response was immediate and devastating. Military plasma cannons that could crack asteroids in half struck the alien ship amidships. The vessel broke apart in a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness of space. "All alien vessels, this is Admiral Chen," the communication system crackled. "You have fired upon Earth Defense Force ships. Withdraw immediately, or you will be destroyed." The alien fleet's response was to attack in full force. 42 remaining ships swarmed toward the 3 human cruisers like angry wasps. Their weapons, which had been set to capture rather than destroy, were now switched to full power. What followed was the first interstellar war in human history. It lasted 6 hours. The aliens were skilled hunters and their ships were fast and maneuverable, but they had never faced an opponent that understood industrial warfare. Human ships carried weapons designed to destroy other warships, not to capture prey. Human tactics were based on thousands of years of warfare against other humans, not ritualized hunting games. One by one, the alien vessels were destroyed. They fought bravely, but they were completely outmatched. Their culture had never prepared them for enemies who sought total victory rather than honorable combat. When it was over, the space around the Harmony was filled with debris and wreckage. Of the 43 alien ships that had surrounded them, none remained intact. Thousands of aliens who had come to hunt humans were now dead. Dr. Park sat at her station, staring at the tactical display with empty eyes. "We killed them all," she whispered. "Every single one of them." Lee looked at the destruction and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no emotion at all. The beast inside him had been fully awakened, and it was still hungry. "Captain Lee," Admiral Chen's voice came. "Through the communication system, excellent work gathering intelligence on this hostile species. Your tactical data allowed us to target their weak points effectively." "Thank you, Admiral. What are our next orders?" "Fleet Command is organizing a full military response. We are going to locate the home worlds of these aliens and ensure they never threaten human space again." Dr. Park looked up at Lee with horror. "You are talking about genocide." "We are talking about survival," Lee replied coldly. "These aliens have shown us what they are. They are predators who see humans as prey. There can be no peace with creatures like that. They could be educated. They could learn." "They had their chance to learn," Lee interrupted. "They chose to hunt us instead." He turned to Admiral Chen's communication channel. "Admiral, I request permission to join the military response. I have more experience with this species than any other human alive. Permission granted, Captain. Welcome to the war. Dr. Park stood up from her station, her legs shaking. I cannot be part of this. I will not help you commit genocide against an entire species. Lee looked at her with eyes that held no warmth. Then you will be transferred to a civilian transport at the next station. 5 years had passed since the first contact with the alien species that humans now called the Velthari. Dr. Park So-Young sat in her small garden on the colony world of New Eden, watching earthcats play among the flowers she had planted in. Memory of the extinct aliens. The cats were strays that she had collected over the years, 7 of them now, all different colors and personalities. They reminded her of the Velthari in their graceful movements and intelligent eyes. Sometimes she imagined that the spirits of the dead aliens had found their way into these small creatures. The morning news broadcast played on her tablet as she sipped her coffee and watched the cats hunt insects in the garden. The reporter's voice was cheerful as she described the latest human expansion into former Velthari space. Today marks the completion of the terraforming project on Velthari Prime, the former home world of the extinct alien species. Admiral Lee Hyun-woo presided over the ceremony as the first human colonists began settling in the planet's major cities. Park turned off the broadcast. She could not bear to hear any more. The war had lasted 3 years. It had not been much of a war, really. The Velthari had been skilled hunters, but they had never learned to fight an enemy that sought their complete destruction. Human industrial capacity had produced weapons and ships faster than the aliens could adapt to new tactics. One by one, the Velthari worlds had fallen. Earth Defense Force fleets would arrive in a system and offer the aliens one chance to surrender unconditionally. When they refused, as they always did, the bombardment would begin. Park had tried to help. She had offered to serve as a translator, to find some way to communicate with the Velthari leaders and arrange a peaceful solution. But Admiral Lee had made it clear that communication was no longer the goal. These creatures see humans as prey, he had told her during their last conversation 3 years ago. They will never change their fundamental nature. The only way to ensure human survival is to remove the threat completely. They have families, Park had pleaded. They have children who have never seen a human being. They have artists and philosophers and scientists. They also have hunters who would kill every human in the galaxy if given the chance, Lee had replied. His voice had been calm and emotionless, as if he were discussing the weather. I will not allow that to happen. The extermination had been thorough and efficient. Human weapons designed for asteroid mining proved excellent at cracking planets. Biological weapons based on Park's own research into Velthari physiology ensured that no survivors could hide in underground shelters. By the end, there were no more Velthari anywhere in the galaxy. An entire species with millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of civilization had been erased from existence in less than 4 years. Humanity celebrated. Admiral Lee became a hero, the man who had saved the human race from alien predators. Statues were built in his honor on a dozen worlds. Children learned his name in school alongside other great military leaders from Earth's history. Park picked up one of her cats, a small orange tabby that reminded her most of the young Velthari who had died in the first encounter. The cat purred as she held it, a sound that was both comforting and heartbreaking. I'm sorry, she whispered to the cat. I'm so sorry we couldn't find another way. Her tablet chimed with an incoming message. Park almost ignored it. But then, she saw the sender's name, Admiral Lee Hyun-woo. She had not heard from him in 2 years. The message was brief. Dr. Park, I will be visiting New Eden next week to inspect the colony's defense systems. I would like to speak with you about a new project. There are other alien species in the galaxy, and humanity needs to be prepared for future encounters. Park's hands shook as she read the message. Lee was still out there, still hunting. The extinction of the Velthari had not satisfied him. If anything, it had made him more dangerous. She thought about the recordings she had made during the war. Hours of Velthari communications that she had translated in secret, hoping to find evidence that might prove their intelligence and culture to human leaders. What she had found instead was far worse than anything she had imagined. The Velthari had not been evil monsters. They had been people, with families and hopes and fears just like humans. Their hunting culture had developed from millions of years of evolution, just as human aggression had. They could have been reasoned with, educated, changed. But Lee had never given them that chance. He had seen them as a threat to humanity, and he had responded with total war. Now he was looking for new threats, new enemies to destroy before they could threaten human expansion. Park deleted the message without responding. She would not help Lee hunt more aliens. She would not provide him with the scientific knowledge he needed to commit more genocide. Instead, she would stay here in her garden with her cats and remember what humanity had lost when it chose to become monsters. The orange tabby jumped down from her lap and stalked a butterfly that had landed on a nearby flower. Its movements were fluid and graceful, exactly like the young Velthari who had approached the human shuttle 5 years ago. The butterfly flew away unharmed, and the cat sat down to clean its paws in the morning sunlight. Park's tablet chimed again. This time it was a news alert about first contact with a new alien species in the Andromeda sector. The aliens were described as peaceful traders who had offered to share technology with humanity. She closed her eyes and tried not to think about what would happen when Admiral Lee heard about these new aliens. She tried not to imagine him studying their weaknesses and planning their destruction. She tried not to remember the sound of the last Velthari matriarch pleading for her people's lives before Lee ordered her execution. But the memories would not go away. They never went away. A small gray cat rubbed against her leg, purring softly. Park reached down to pet it and felt tears on her cheeks. Each cat she saved reminded her of the aliens she had failed to save. Each purr was like an echo of the musical, calls that had once filled the communication channels between species. The morning sun climbed higher in the sky, warming the garden and making the flowers bloom brighter. It was a beautiful day on New Eden, a perfect day for new life and growth and hope. But Park knew that somewhere in the darkness between the stars, Admiral Lee was already planning humanity's next war. The beast that had awakened inside him during that first encounter would never sleep again. It would keep hunting until there was nothing left to kill. She had helped create that beast by providing the scientific knowledge that made the Velthari's extinction possible. Her research into their biology and behavior had been turned into weapons. Her translations of their communications had been used to target their most sacred sites. The worst part was that she understood why Lee had done it. The Velthari had been predators. They had seen humans as prey. In any natural ecosystem, predators and prey could not coexist peacefully, but humans were supposed to be more than just another species in the ecosystem. They were supposed to be civilized, intelligent, capable of rising above their animal instincts. They were supposed to be better. Instead, they had become the apex predators of the galaxy, and they were just getting started. Park's tablet chimed with another message from Admiral Lee. This one was marked urgent. Dr. Park, I know you blame me for what happened to the Velthari, but you need to understand that I saved humanity. These new aliens in Andromeda may seem peaceful, but we cannot take that risk. We need to study them, understand their weaknesses, prepare for the possibility that they are another threat. Park deleted the message without reading the rest. She already knew what it would say. Lee would want her expertise in alien psychology and biology. He would want her to help him understand these new aliens so that he could destroy them if necessary. But she was done helping humanity become monsters. She stood up from her chair and walked to the small memorial she had built in the corner of her garden. 7 stones, one for each of her cats, but also one for each day of the first week after the Velthari extinction was completed. On each stone was carved a simple message in the alien language she had learned too late to make any difference. "We remember you. We mourn for you. We are sorry." The cats gathered around her feet as she knelt beside the memorial. They seemed to understand that this was a sacred place, a place for remembering the dead. They purred softly, a sound like the musical calls of a species that would never sing again. In the distance, Park could hear the sounds of the colony expanding. New buildings were being constructed, new families were arriving, new children were being born who would grow up in a galaxy where humans were the only intelligent species. They would never know what had been lost. They would never hear the songs of the Velthari or see their beautiful bioluminescent art. They would grow up believing that humans were alone in the universe because that was easier than believing the truth. The truth was that humans had not been alone. They had shared the galaxy with other intelligent beings who could have been friends, teachers, partners in exploring the mysteries of existence. But fear and misunderstanding had turned first contact into first blood, and first blood had become genocide.